The alien girl smiled and made me an offer I didn't expect. Elias Mercer had learned long ago that the edges of known space never looked the way maps promised. Charts showed clean lines, stable routes, and safe ports. Reality was darker, quieter, and full of stations that existed only because someone somewhere needed a place no one would ask questions about. Kestrel Station was one of those places. It floated near a dying red star, its metal skin scarred by micrometeor strikes and patched repairs. Old docking arms stretched out like broken fingers. The lights along its hull flickered, some permanently dark. It was officially listed as a commercial relay, but everyone who flew the outer lanes knew the truth. Kestrel was where information, rare goods, and quiet deals passed hands without records. Elias guided his courier ship in slowly, hands steady on the controls. He had flown this route dozens of times, carrying sealed cargo he was paid not to inspect. He did not ask questions and the station did not offer answers. That was how people survived out here. The docking clamps locked with a dull thud. Pressure equalized. Green lights blinked across his console. Docking complete, the ship's simple AI said. Reminder, station gravity fluctuates. Yeah, I know, Elias muttered as he stood and stretched. His joints ached in the familiar way of long travel. He grabbed his jacket, checked that his ident chip was secure, and headed for the airlock. The moment he stepped onto the station, he felt it. The air was stale, recycled too many times. It smelled faintly of metal, ozone, and something sour he could never quite identify. The corridor lights hummed softly. Somewhere deeper inside the station, voices echoed in alien tones, layered and strange. Elias walked toward the main concourse, boots clanking against the deck. He passed beings from half a dozen species. Tall insect-like traders with folded wings, thick-skinned quadrupeds moving on mechanical harnesses, thin, floating shapes wrapped in shimmering fields. Most ignored him. A few glanced his way, then looked aside. That was when he noticed the silence. It wasn't total silence. The station was never quiet, but there was a pocket of stillness ahead, like sound itself was avoiding one section of the concourse. Elias slowed without realizing it. At the center of that quiet space stood a girl. At least, she looked like one. She was roughly human-sized, with a slender frame and smooth, pale skin that seemed to catch the light in an odd way, almost like it reflected more than it should. Her hair, or what looked like hair, fell straight down her back in a deep silver-black color. Her clothing was simple, a dark, seamless garment with no visible fasteners or markings. She stood calmly near a closed vendor stall, hands folded in front of her, eyes watching the flow of traffic. People avoided her. Elias frowned. Species on stations like this were used to oddities. Dangerous beings were common, but they drew attention, not avoidance. Yet every alien passing near her adjusted their path slightly, like animals circling a quiet fire. The girl turned her head. Her eyes met Elias's. She smiled. It was not a wide or dramatic smile, just a small, gentle curve of her lips, but something about it made Elias stop walking. A warning bell rang softly in his mind. He told himself it was nothing. Fatigue, maybe. Long trips could mess with perception. He took another step. She spoke. Elias Mercer, she said in clear, unaccented standard human. You are right on time. His heart skipped. He looked around quickly. No one else was paying attention. The crowd flowed past as if the conversation did not exist. How do you know my name? Elias asked. The girl tilted her head slightly. You are easier to find than you believe. Elias felt his fingers curl unconsciously. I don't know you. No, she agreed softly. But I know you. That did it. Elias backed away one step. Look, if this is some kind of trick. It is not a trick, she said. And you are not in danger, not yet. Not yet. Elias swallowed. Then what do you want? She studied him for a moment, as if confirming something only she could see. Then she gestured toward a nearby seating alcove carved into the station wall. Walk with me, she said. Others should not hear this. Elias hesitated. Every instinct told him to refuse. Kestrel Station was full of predators, some subtle, some obvious, but this was different. Whatever she was not trying to hide, and running now might draw the wrong kind of attention. 5 minutes, he said. That's all, she smiled again. That will be enough to begin. They walked together, and Elias noticed something unsettling. As they moved, the noise of the station seemed to fade around them. Conversations dulled. Footsteps softened. It was as if the space itself was listening elsewhere. They sat across from each other. Up close, she looked even more unusual. Her features were almost human, but too precise, too balanced. Her eyes were a deep gray that reflected light like polished stone. "You're not registered," Elias said. "I checked arrivals before docking." "I did not arrive the way others do," she replied. "Then what are you?" She considered the question. "A representative," she said at last. "An observer, a messenger." Elias exhaled slowly. "Of who?" "Of a people who have watched your species for a very long time." The words landed heavy. Elias laughed once sharply. "Right, let me guess. Ancient aliens, secret judges of humanity." "If humor helps you think, then yes," she said calmly. He stopped laughing. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you travel alone," she said. "Because you have seen many worlds but belong fully to none. Because you are cautious but not cruel. And because when faced with the unknown, you listen before you act." Elias stared at her. "You don't know anything about me." Her eyes softened. "You once vented your ship's oxygen reserve to save a stranded mining crew," she said. "You nearly died before rescue arrived. You never reported it because you believed helping them was not something worth praise." Elias felt cold. "That record is sealed," he said. "Not to us," she replied. Silence stretched between them. "What do you want?" Elias repeated, more quietly this time. She folded her hands on the table. "I want to make you an offer." An alarm flickered briefly across Elias' ident display, warning of unregistered scanning activity. Then it vanished. "What kind of offer?" he asked. "One no human has ever received before," she said. "And one that will shape what happens to your species next." Elias leaned back slowly. "You're talking about first contact." "Yes," she said, "but not the kind you imagine." She glanced around the concourse. The station continued its business unaware. "For thousands of cycles," she continued, "my people have watched civilizations rise into the stars. We observe patterns, behaviors, endings." "Endings," Elias repeated. "Most do not last long," she said. "Some destroy themselves, some are destroyed by others. Some stagnate and fade." "And humanity?" Elias asked. She looked at him steadily. "Humanity is approaching a threshold." Elias rubbed his forehead. "Everyone says that about us." "This threshold is real," she said. "Your technology accelerates, your reach expands. Soon you will be impossible to ignore." "And that's a problem for you?" he asked. "It is a question," she corrected, "one we must answer." Elias studied her face, searching for threat, arrogance, fear. He found none of it, only certainty. "So what's the offer?" he asked. She smiled again, and this time there was something else behind it, not calculation, curiosity. "We offer you a chance," she said, "to speak for your species before the galaxy decides without you." Elias felt his pulse quicken. "I'm not a leader." "That is precisely why you were chosen," she replied. "Leaders speak for power, we wish to hear from judgment." He shook his head slowly. "This is insane." "Perhaps," she said, "but it is real." She leaned forward slightly. "Accepting does not mean obedience. It does not mean surrender, it means dialogue." "And if humanity refuses?" Elias asked. Her smile faded just a little. "Then the observers will conclude what many already believe," she said, "that humans are too unpredictable to be allowed influence." Elias felt a chill. "What does that mean?" "It means your future will be limited," she said carefully. The words were gentle, their meaning was not. Elias stood abruptly. "I need proof." She rose with him. "You already have it," she said, "but you will receive more." She stepped back, giving him space. "I will be here when you are ready," she said. "Not long, time matters." Elias took a step away, then stopped. "What's your name?" he asked. She considered again, then answered. "Names are difficult," she said, "but you may call me Seelan." He nodded once and turned away. As he walked back toward his ship, the noise of the station rushed back around him like a wave breaking. Voices grew loud again. The world felt heavy, solid, ordinary. But Elias knew, with a certainty he could not explain, that nothing was ordinary anymore. Behind him, Seelan watched him go. And she smiled, not because the offer was made, but because, for the first time in many cycles, she believed the answer might surprise them all. Elias did not sleep after leaving the concourse. Back inside his ship, he sat in the pilot's chair with the cabin lights dimmed, staring at nothing while the station's distant hum vibrated through the hull. He replayed every word Seelan had spoken, every movement, every pause. His mind searched for tricks, hidden tech, illusions, or drugs. He ran diagnostics twice. No toxins in the air, no neural interference, no hidden signals strong enough to explain what he had felt. And yet he could not shake the sense that something vast had brushed past his small, ordinary life. The ship's AI spoke softly. "Docking time remaining, 6 hours. Cargo transfer window opens in 2. Cancel auto-sleep," Elias said. "Confirmed." He stood and paced the narrow cabin. He told himself this was not his problem. He was a courier. He moved things from point A to point B and stayed alive doing it. He had no authority, no mandate to speak for billions of humans spread across dozens of systems. But Seelan had not asked for authority. She had asked for judgment. That thought bothered him more than the threat hidden inside her calm words. Elias finally sat again and pulled up a secure data pad. He accessed old records, fragments of rumors and half-forgotten reports. Missing probes, silent stars, civilizations that had gone quiet with no clear reason. He had always assumed war, disaster, or economics. Now a new possibility crept into his thoughts: observers, judges. He closed the pad with a sharp motion. "This is insane," he muttered. A soft chime interrupted him. "Unscheduled visitor request," the AI said. Elias froze. "From who?" "Unknown biological signature. Docking port C." His heart began to race. "Deny access." There was a pause. "Unable to comply. Docking override authorized." Elias stood, anger flashing through fear. "By who?" "Authorization does not match known station or corporate profiles," the AI replied. The airlock cycled. Seelan stepped inside his ship as if she had always belonged there. Elias stared. "I didn't invite you." "No," she said calmly, "but you were not going to come back on your own." "That's not how consent works," he snapped. She inclined her head. "Then consider this an intrusion born of urgency, not disrespect." The airlock sealed behind her. The ship felt smaller instantly. Elias crossed his arms. "You said time mattered. Fine, talk, but make it quick." Seelan looked around the cabin with interest. Her eyes traced the scuffed panels, the worn seat, the personal touches Elias had added over the years. "You live lightly," she said. "That is uncommon." "Focus," Elias replied. She met his gaze. "Very well." She stepped closer, stopping at a respectful distance. "My offer was incomplete," she said. "Not because I wished to deceive you, but because humans require context." Elias snorted. "You don't say." She raised one hand slightly and the air shimmered. A projection formed between them. Stars bloomed into view. Thousands of them. Then they shifted, pulling back, revealing patterns. Lines connected systems. Then those lines dimmed and vanished. "What you see," Seelan said, "are civilizations that reached beyond their home stars." The projection zoomed in on one cluster. Worlds burned, fleets clashed, then darkness. "Some fell by war," she continued. Another cluster showed peaceful expansion, followed by internal collapse. Some by division. Another showed a species that mastered energy and automation. Their cities grew vast, then static, silence. They had everything, Elias murmured. They had control, Seelan corrected. Not wisdom. The image shifted again. A young civilization appeared, ships launched cautiously, trade routes formed. Then a sudden violent encounter. The image ended abruptly. They were eliminated, Seelan said, because they reacted with fear. Elias felt a tightness in his chest. And humans, the projection hesitated as if thinking. Humans are unresolved, Seelan said. She gestured and images of humanity appeared. Early space stations, colonies struggling to survive, disasters, rescues, wars, treaties. Sacrifices. Elias saw things he recognized. A human ship ramming itself into an asteroid to save a habitat. Engineers jury-rigging life support from scrap. Soldiers laying down weapons to protect civilians of another species. You are chaotic, Seelan said. Often violent. Frequently irrational. Elias folded his arms tighter. I'm guessing there's a but. But you adapt, she said. You learn fastest when you fail. You protect even when logic says you should not. The projection paused on an image of a mixed species evacuation, humans forming a shield with their own bodies. That behavior confuses many observers, Seelan said. It does not align with survival-maximizing models. So you're saying we're bad at being selfish, Elias said. Yes, she replied, and that may be your greatest strength. Elias looked away, uncomfortable. Then why the threat? Because unpredictability scales with power, she said. A small fire warms, a large one consumes. He turned back. So what exactly are you asking of me? Seelan let the projection fade. I am asking you to agree to speak, she said. Not as a ruler, not as a hero, but as a human. To who? Elias asked. To those who decide whether humanity will be welcomed, watched, or removed, she said. Elias felt a surge of anger. You talk about removal like it's nothing. Her voice softened. To us, extinction is a tragic pattern. To you, it is everything. Then don't pretend this is a fair choice, he said. It is not fair, she admitted. It is simply real. Silence filled the cabin. Elias finally asked, why not go to Earth, or the councils? Why some nobody courier? Seelan met his eyes. Because institutions lie when afraid, she said. Individuals hesitate, doubt, and reveal truth. That's a terrible reason, Elias said. She smiled faintly. It has proven effective. Elias paced again. Say I agree, what happens? You will be taken to observe, she said, to understand, then you will answer questions. And if I say no, she did not answer immediately. That is also an answer, she said at last. Elias stopped. You're already judging us. Yes, she said simply. Constantly, he laughed bitterly. Figures. A warning tone sounded from the ship. Station security patrol approaching, the AI said. Seelan glanced toward the hull. My presence has been noticed. You think, Elias said. She turned back to him. You must decide soon. Soon as in minutes, he asked. Soon as in this encounter, she replied. Elias felt the weight of it press down on him, not just his life but something far larger. He thought of Earth, of colonies scraping by on hostile worlds, of children who would never know the stars if this went wrong. I don't trust you, he said. That is reasonable, Seelan replied. I don't trust your people, he continued. Also reasonable. But I trust humans to mess things up in new ways, Elias said quietly, and sometimes to fix them. Seelan watched him carefully. If I go with you, Elias said, I don't promise obedience, I don't promise agreement, and I don't promise silence. Her eyes brightened slightly. Those are acceptable conditions, he exhaled slowly. Then I'll listen. Seelan smiled, and this time there was no mystery in it, only something like relief. Then the offer is accepted, she said. The ship's lights flickered. The stars outside the viewport shifted, bending in ways Elias' mind struggled to follow. As space itself seemed to open before them, Elias realized something important. Humanity was no longer alone. And whatever came next, the galaxy was about to learn that humans did not face the unknown quietly, or without asking difficult questions. The transition did not feel like movement. Elias expected force, pressure, or pain. Instead, it felt like standing still while the universe rearranged itself around him. The stars outside the viewport stretched into thin white lines, then faded into a soft gray glow. His stomach tightened, but the ship did not shake. There was no sound, no sense of speed. Then it was over. The glow vanished, replaced by darkness filled with distant points of light. But these stars were wrong. They were too sharp, too still, like markers rather than suns. Elias swallowed. "We didn't just jump," he said. "No," Seelan replied. "Your ship did not move." "That's worse," Elias muttered. The AI spoke, its tone flat but strained. "All known spatial references are unavailable. Sensor input does not match any mapped region." Elias rubbed his face. "Turn it off. I need quiet." The AI complied. Seelan stepped closer to the viewport. "We are within an observation structure," she said. "It exists partially outside normal space." Elias stared at the stars. "You built this." "Many hands over long time," she replied. "No single species claims ownership." "Convenient," he said. Seelan did not react. A soft light filled the cabin, coming from nowhere Elias could identify. The walls of the ship seemed to blur at the edges, as if the structure around them was gently overlapping with something larger. "Am I still on my ship?" Elias asked. "Yes," Seelan said, "and also not entirely," he sighed. "Figures." The air shifted. The cabin expanded without breaking. Walls moved outward, dissolving into a vast open chamber. Elias stumbled back, instinctively reaching for balance. His ship was gone, replaced by a smooth platform beneath his feet. The chamber was enormous. Curved surfaces stretched upward and outward, glowing softly with patterns that moved like slow currents. There were no sharp edges, no visible doors, no machinery. The space felt alive but calm. Elias turned in a slow circle. "You could have warned me." "I did," Seelan said gently. "I said you would observe." Figures appeared around the chamber, not suddenly, not dramatically. They simply resolved into existence, as if Elias' eyes had finally learned how to see them. There were many. Some were tall and thin, their forms shifting subtly, like smoke given structure. Others were solid and geometric, composed of interlocking shapes that hovered above the floor. Some resembled living creatures, while others looked like moving ideas rather than bodies. None of them spoke. Elias felt very small. "These are the observers?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Seelan said. "They don't look united," he said. "They are not," she replied. "They are aligned by purpose, not nature." Elias folded his arms, more for comfort than defiance. "And that purpose is judging us." "Understanding," Seelan corrected. "Judgment follows understanding." "That's what judges always say." Seelan looked at him. "You are afraid." "Of course I am," Elias said. "Anyone who says they wouldn't be is lying." "That honesty is noted," she said. One of the figures shifted forward. It did not walk. Space bent slightly around it, bringing it closer. A voice entered Elias' mind. Not words at first, but impressions. Weight, age, distance. Then meaning. "Human representative," the voice said. "You are aware you do not speak for your entire species." Elias swallowed. "Yes." "Why are you here?" He took a breath. "Because you asked," he said, "and because someone had to answer." The presence paused. Many of the observers focused on him now. Elias felt their attention like pressure on his skin, not painful but intense. Another voice joined. "Your species is volatile. Why should it be allowed further expansion?" Elias laughed softly. "You're asking me to convince you humans deserve to exist." "We are asking why we should risk allowing you to change the balance," the voice replied. Elias looked at Seelan. She gave him a small nod. He turned back to the observers. "I won't tell you humans are peaceful," he said. "That would be a lie. We fight, we argue, we mess up, a lot." "That is evident," one presence replied. "But we don't stop," Elias continued. "We fail and we try again. Sometimes we do terrible things. Sometimes we regret them enough to do better." "Regret is inefficient," another voice noted. "So is extinction," Elias replied. A ripple moved through the chamber, not anger, interest. One presence projected an image, a human city burning. Your wars consume entire worlds. Yes, Elias said quietly, and we hate that about ourselves. Another image appeared, humans enslaving others, exploitation, suffering. We've done this too, Elias said, and we're still paying for it. Another image followed. Humans helping strangers, sharing food, rebuilding after disaster. Why this contradiction? A voice asked. Elias spread his hands. Because we're not finished, he said. You're looking at us in the middle of the story. The observers fell silent. Seelan watched Elias closely. She had seen many representatives freeze, boast, or beg. Elias did none of those things. He simply spoke as himself. One presence shifted again. Your species acts emotionally. Emotion destabilizes systems. Emotion also makes us protect people we don't know, Elias said. It makes us run toward danger when logic says run away. Logic favors survival, the presence replied. Survival of what? Elias asked. The body or the future? That question lingered. Another presence spoke, colder than the rest. Humans have used weapons of mass destruction. They will again. Elias nodded. Probably, he said, and then we'll argue about it, protest it, ban it, and argue some more. You admit inevitability, the voice said. I admit struggle, Elias replied. There's a difference. The chamber's light shifted. New images appeared. Other species, other civilizations, some rigid and efficient, some peaceful and static, some powerful and cruel, they all ended the same way, silence. They were perfect, Elias whispered. They were consistent, Seelan said softly, not perfect. Elias looked at the observers. Humans don't settle into one shape, he said. We change when the old way stops working, sometimes too late, sometimes just in time. Why should that matter to us? A voice asked. Elias took a deep breath. Because the galaxy isn't static, he said. Threats change. Environments change. Problems you can't predict show up. You need people who can adapt when plans fail. You propose humans as a corrective force, a presence said. No, Elias replied. I propose us as a risk. A ripple moved through the chamber again, stronger this time. Seelan's eyes widened slightly. Letting us into the wider galaxy is dangerous, Elias continued. We'll disrupt things, we'll question rules, we'll get in the way. Why allow that? The cold voice asked. Because stagnation is also dangerous, Elias said. You've seen that. You're standing in its graveyard. Silence returned, heavier than before. Finally, a new presence spoke. It felt older than the others, deeper. If we allow humanity further reach, what do you believe will happen? Elias hesitated. This was the hardest question. I don't know, he said honestly. Anyone who tells you they do is lying. That answer surprised them. But I believe, Elias went on, that when humans are faced with something bigger than themselves, they argue and then they show up. Not always clean, not always united. But they show up. For what purpose? The presence asked. To help, Elias said, or at least to try. Seelan stepped forward slightly. They do not seek dominion, she said. They seek meaning. Another presence responded. Meaning is unstable. So are stars, Elias said. But you still need them. The chamber dimmed. The observers withdrew slightly, not leaving but turning inward. Elias sensed a conversation happening beyond sound and language. He exhaled, feeling suddenly exhausted. Seelan spoke quietly. You did well. I don't feel like I convinced anyone, Elias said. She smiled faintly. You did something rarer. You did not perform. Time passed. Elias did not know how long. The chamber had no clocks, no markers. Eventually, the presence returned its attention to him. Your species will not be removed, the old presence said. Elias felt his knees weaken slightly. However, it continued, you will not be welcomed openly. That sounds ominous, Elias said. You will be observed more closely, the voice said. Guided indirectly. Tested. Elias frowned. Tested how? Through choice, the presence replied. Opportunity, crisis, consequence. That's already how we live, Elias said. The presence paused. That is noted. Seelan turned to Elias. "This is more than most receive," she said. "What about contact?" Elias asked. "Real contact." "Not yet," the presence said, "but you will not be alone." The chamber began to fade. The observers dissolved back into the structure, their forms thinning until they were gone. The space around Elias compressed gently, reforming into the familiar shape of his ship's cabin. The stars returned to normal. Elias collapsed into the pilot's chair, breathing hard. Seelan stood beside him, her expression thoughtful. "So," Elias said weakly. "Did humanity pass?" she considered. "You did not fail," she said. "That's not the same thing." "No," she agreed, "but for us it is rare." The ship's AI reactivated. All systems stable, location unknown but consistent with previous readings. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. "What happens now?" he asked. Seelan looked out at the stars. "Now," she said, "the galaxy waits to see what humans do next." Elias opened his eyes, a grim smile forming. "Good," he said. "We're very good at surprising people." The stars shifted again, but this time the movement felt familiar. Elias sat in the pilot's chair, hands resting loosely on the controls as normal space settled back into place. The navigation display blinked, struggled, then filled with recognizable constellations. Kestrel Station appeared on the edge of the screen, exactly where it should have been. "That's comforting," Elias said quietly. Seelan stood behind him, her posture calm but alert. "You are returned to the moment you left," she said. "For others, little time has passed." "That's going to make explanations fun," Elias replied. The ship docked without incident. No alarms. No security teams waiting. To the station, Elias Mercer had simply been gone for a short while, but he was not the same person who had left. He stood slowly, feeling the weight of what he now carried. "You said we'd be tested," he said. "When does that start?" Seelan met his gaze. "It already has." They stepped onto the station together. This time people noticed, not with fear but with curiosity. A few aliens glanced at Seelan and then at Elias, sensing something had shifted, even if they did not know what. Elias walked with purpose toward the station's comms hub. "I need long-range access," he said. "Encrypted human channels." "That will attract attention," Seelan warned. "It should," Elias replied. Inside the comms room, Elias linked his ident and began transmitting, not to one authority but to many: Earth, colonial councils, independent fleets, scientific networks. He sent everything he could, data, recordings, and his own account. He did not dress it up. He did not soften the truth. He spoke plainly. "We are being watched," he said in his message. "Not as prey, not as pets, but as a risk. Some think we should be removed before we grow too strong. Others think we might matter." He paused, then continued. "They are not gods. They are not saviors. They are just old, careful, and afraid of change. And right now, one ordinary human was asked to speak for us." The message spread faster than Elias expected. Debate erupted almost instantly. Some dismissed it as a lie or delusion. Others panicked. Some demanded weapons be prepared. Others demanded negotiations. Accusations flew. Old rivalries flared. Humanity did what it always did. It argued loudly. From a quiet corner of the station, Seelan watched the response unfold across her internal awareness. She saw fear, denial, anger, but also curiosity and restraint. "They are not unified," one distant observer noted. "They never are," Seelan replied. "Yet they move." The test came 3 days later. It did not arrive with a warning. A remote colony whirled near the fringe reported a massive energy anomaly. Sensors failed. Communications degraded. Then ships began to vanish. Explorers first. Then traders. Then a patrol vessel. Panic spread quickly. Elias watched the reports from his ship, jaw tight. "This is it," he said, "isn't it?" "Yes," Seelan replied. "This is an opportunity." "That's a funny word for people disappearing," Elias snapped. Seelan did not argue. "The anomaly is not caused by us," she said, "but how humanity responds will be observed." Human leadership fractured immediately. Some demanded quarantine and retreat. Others called for a military response. A few proposed ignoring the region entirely. Elias listened, frustration building. "They're going to freeze," he said, "or overreact. Perhaps," Seelan said, "or perhaps they will surprise us again." Elias opened a channel, bypassing formal structures. He spoke to independent captains, rescue groups, and scientific teams. "People are missing," he said simply. "Argue later, move now." Against official advice, ships mobilized, not warships but rescue vessels, research craft, civilian transports refitted for emergency response. They did not go in blind. Human engineers shared data openly. Rival factions exchanged information without waiting for treaties. Old enemies coordinated routes. It was messy, loud, inefficient, but it worked. The anomaly turned out to be a collapsing pocket of unstable space, slowly expanding. Ships were not destroyed. They were trapped, suspended between states. Human scientists argued fiercely, then built a solution from borrowed theories and half-tested math. Rescue ships anchored themselves at the edge, using their own mass and power to stabilize the region. It was dangerous. Several ships suffered damage, one barely escaped, but no one fired a weapon. They pulled the trapped ships free, all of them. Elias watched the final rescue feed in silence. "They chose risk," Seelan said softly, "not dominance." "They chose people," Elias replied. "The observers took notice." "They exposed themselves too readily," one presence said. "Yes," another replied, "and they accept the cost." From that moment on, things changed. Human ships began encountering small advantages. A sensor reading clearer than expected. A navigation error that corrected itself. No messages, no explanations. Guidance indirect and deniable. Humanity noticed, argued about it, then used it carefully. Elias returned to Earth weeks later. He stood before councils and assemblies not as a hero but as a witness. He told them what he knew and what he did not. "We're not special," he said. "We're just unfinished." Some listened. Some didn't, but enough did. Seelan watched from a distance, her role shifting. She was no longer just an observer, she was a bridge. One night, as Elias stood looking up at Earth's sky, Seelan joined him. "They are still afraid of you," he said. "They should be," she replied. "You are not predictable." Elias smiled faintly. "Neither is the universe." Seelan looked thoughtful. "In time there will be open contact." "And more tests," Elias said. "Yes," she agreed. "And failures," he nodded. "We're good at getting back up." Seelan smiled, and this time there was no calculation at all. For the first time in a very long while, the galaxy was not just watching humanity. It was waiting. The galaxy did not change overnight. That was something Elias understood very clearly as months passed after the rescue near the anomaly. There were no grand announcements, no glowing ships appearing over Earth, no voices speaking from the stars. Life continued much as it always had, busy, loud, and imperfect. But beneath the surface, something was different. Human ships traveled farther now, not faster in speed, but with more confidence. Explorers pushed into regions once marked as too unstable or too strange. Scientists shared information more openly, knowing that somewhere beyond their sight, something ancient was watching how they chose to act. Elias returned to his work as a courier by choice. Many had offered him positions of power, advisory roles, permanent seats on councils. Media attention followed him wherever he went, at least at first. He refused all of it. "I didn't speak for humanity because I was important," he told them. "I spoke because I was human. Anyone else could have done the same." Some believed him, some did not. Seelan remained close but never intrusive. She appeared when needed, vanished when she was not. To the public, she was a rumor. To a few leaders, she was proof that the universe was larger and more complicated than they had imagined. To Elias, she was a reminder. One quiet evening aboard his ship, drifting between stars, Elias stared at a slow-moving nebula outside the viewport. Colors shifted gently like breath. "Are they still watching?" he asked. "Yes," Seelan replied, standing beside him. "All the time." "Yes," he nodded. "Figures." There was a pause. "They are uncertain," Seelan added. Elias turned. "That doesn't sound like them." "They are accustomed to patterns," she said. "Humanity refuses to settle into one." Elias smiled faintly. "We call that personality." The next test came not from the observers but from humanity itself. A border conflict erupted between two human factions over a resource-rich system. Tensions escalated quickly. Fleets gathered. Weapons were armed. Old grudges resurfaced. The observers watched closely. "This is the risk," one presence noted. "They will turn their strength inward." "They may," Seelan replied, "or they may surprise us again." Elias was not a commander, but he was known. Messages reached him from both sides asking him to support their position. He refused both. Instead, he spoke publicly. "You're not being watched because you're powerful," he said. "You're being watched because you're dangerous when you stop caring about the future. If you turn this into a war, you prove the worst fears right." Some mocked him. Some ignored him. But enough listened. Negotiations were messy. Shouting matches replaced battles. Compromises were ugly and unsatisfying, but no shots were fired. The observers noticed. "They restrained themselves," one presence said, "even when they could dominate." "They argue first," another replied. "Violently, but they stop short." "That hesitation is inefficient," the cold presence said. "It is restraint," Seelan answered. Humanity continued forward, stumbling and correcting itself in equal measure. There were failures. A research station collapsed due to human error. A diplomatic mission ended in misunderstanding. A prototype technology caused damage before it was shut down. Each time, humans responded in familiar ways: arguments, blame, fear, then repair, then learning. Elias watched it all from the quiet edges, moving between worlds that were slowly becoming less isolated. One day, Seelan appeared aboard his ship without warning. "It is time," she said. Elias looked up from his console. "For what?" "For a decision," she replied. "Not yours." "Ours?" The space around them shifted, gently this time, like a curtain being drawn aside. The observation chamber formed once more, vast and calm. The observers gathered. They did not project images this time. They spoke directly. "Humanity has demonstrated growth," the ancient presence said, "not perfection, growth." Elias stood quietly, hands at his sides. "They will still cause harm," the cold presence said. "Yes," Seelan replied. "And they will also prevent it, often at great cost to themselves." Another presence spoke. "They do not seek control of the galaxy." "No," Elias said, "we can barely control ourselves." A ripple of something like amusement passed through the chamber. The old presence spoke again. "We will alter our stance." Elias felt his heart quicken. "Humanity will no longer be evaluated for removal," it said. "You are deemed necessary." The word echoed. Necessary. "You're saying we matter," Elias said carefully. "You are a catalyst," the presence replied. "An agent of change, disruptive, uncomfortable, but vital in a universe that has grown too still." Seelan closed her eyes briefly, relief passing over her features. "What does that mean for us?" Elias asked. "It means you will not be guided quietly anymore," the presence said. "When contact comes, it will be open. Not today, but soon. And if we mess it up," Elias asked. The presence paused. "Then you will try again." Elias smiled. "That sounds like us." The chamber faded for the final time. Back in normal space, Seelan turned to Elias. "My people will change," she said, "because of yours." Elias shook his head. "We didn't do this alone." "No," she agreed, "but you were the first to choose responsibility without reward." News of the observers' decision did not spread publicly. Not yet, but changes followed. Alien signals were detected and answered without fear. Trade routes expanded cautiously. New alliances formed not out of dominance but curiosity. When first open contact finally happened, it was not dramatic. A single ship appeared near a human station. It did not threaten. It did not demand. It waited. Humans argued about how to respond. Then they sent a ship, not a battleship, a medical vessel. Elias watched the broadcast from his ship, hands folded, heart steady. "They sent help first," Seelan said softly. "Of course they did," Elias replied. The galaxy watched as humans stepped forward, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as stubborn, hopeful participants in a larger story. They were loud. They were flawed. They were impossible to ignore. And for the first time in a very long time, the ancient civilizations of the stars felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not control, but anticipation. Humanity had arrived, not because it was the strongest, but because it refused to stop becoming better.